Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back. Hopefully you are settled in and ready for a bit more information sharing this afternoon. In case you don't know me, I'm Lori McFerrin. I'm the ALS Association's Care Coordinator for the state of Maine. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back. Hopefully you are settled in and ready for a bit more information sharing this afternoon. Perfect. This afternoon's personal journey moment comes from David DOANE. David lives in Bucksport, Maine, where he and his wife moved several years ago to live out their retirement dream. David and Michelle own a farm where they care for numerous horses, and as I just found out, a 30-year-old mule named Bailey, who I would love to meet. David first reached out to the ALS Association Northern New England chapter to become involved in the Bangor Walk. David had been diagnosed with ALS and set out to take action. Let me introduce David to share his personal story. Welcome, David, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Lori, and hello, everybody. My name is David DOANE, and as Lori said, I'm a person with ALS diagnosed in December of 2018. So with that said, I want to fully disclose that's not my picture, as you can tell. If you go look at the people, that picture is something I just took out of a magazine, as I have another good friend, Mark, who posted a picture of himself as a 22-year-old on a bucking bronco. And I was very, very jealous. So that's how that picture came to be. And Mark, I appreciate that challenge there. So for everybody, I'm 65 years old. I'll be 66 in December. Cards and wishes welcome. I retired in June of 2017, and we relocated to Maine immediately after retiring. Contrary to what Maurette said this morning, that she pulled off my LinkedIn page, I'm just a JAG, just a normal guy, not a military lawyer. And those titles are off my 501c3, which I use for special ALS activities. But I'm just a regular guy who's retired, and I live on our farm in Bucksport. For those who don't know, Bucksport is the gateway to down east, located about 18, 20 miles from Bangor, right on the Penobscot River. As Lori said, we live on the farm with my wife, Michelle, 8 horses, 2 dogs, all rescues except one of our horses. I have a daughter and son-in-law and 3 grandchildren who live in Chicago. Unfortunately, since COVID, we have not been able to see them. So I retired after a 40-year career in healthcare, where I spent the last 17 years as a healthcare engineer. Not actually my real title, but it really described my role as I worked to redesign almost every aspect of physician practices. I worked in a very large 100-physician practice, nephrology practice, that's kidneys. And I also worked in ambulatory surgical centers as well as dialysis clinics. So both my wife and I are extremely active in the community. Before I moved here, Michelle moved up a couple of weeks early. While I stayed back waiting for the horse transport and to finish up a couple projects. By the time I got here, Michelle had already joined 2 boards within town. She was delivering Meals on Wheels, and my neighbors were referring to her as the new queen of Bucksport. So she's very active in the community. In her spare time, she sells real estate. I'm not as active as she is, as my life is now packed with ALS. But I too share on several boards in town as well, and occasionally fill in with Meals on Wheels. So over the next few minutes, I'm going to take you through my short but packed journey through ALS. It's relatively detailed, and I hope I don't bore you all. My diagnosis with ALS came very, very quickly, and it was a big surprise. In August of 2018, I had developed a limp and a sore knee on my right side. I attributed that to a fracture pelvis I had from a fall in our barn in Texas in 2014. I had several screws put in my hip, and it had been behaving pretty well. And I thought that this was some sort of action as a result of things I've been doing differently here in Maine. So I went to the orthopedic surgeon. She looked at it and agreed and said, "Yeah." Took some X-rays. She said, "Yeah, I think it has to do with your pelvis." And that was in August. It didn't get any better. I went to my PCP in early December. He reviewed my history and thought, well, maybe I had Lyme disease, because in the previous summer, I worked in Acadia, and I had several tick bites. So he thought it could be Lyme disease, because I had a slight weakening in my right hand. He drew some blood, and he said, let's see what happens. It all came back normal, with the exception of my CPK, which he said was the highest he'd ever seen, and he referred me to a neurologist. I was able to get in to see her about a week later, and she did a really extensive examination, about 90 minutes. It's the most time I've ever spent with a physician in my life as a patient. And when she's done, she said my limp wasn't a limp, but it was drop foot. I definitely had a loss of strength in my hands, and her differential diagnosis was carpal tunnel and a probable disc issue. Now, I've never had any back issues, but she thought I was demonstrating some issues from a disc. She ordered MRI, EMG, some lab tests, and said she'd get back to me. Shortly thereafter, I got a call from her while I was grocery shopping. She said she had my test results back, and I did have carpal tunnel, but my EMG was indicated possible ALS. And that really was the first time she had mentioned that, and caught me off guard. So she had me come back in, do some more tests. And she called me about a week later after that, said, yes, we've confirmed you have ALS, and I'm going to refer you to Brigham's in Boston for a second opinion. Because she just hadn't seen that much ALS, being up here in Bangor. So I went into Boston. Oh, no, that's not what happened. So with that said, I immediately panicked because I was convinced it was ALS. And I opened up my network, and I found a couple of acquaintances I had that actually worked at Mass General. And through a little bit of research, I realized Mass General was really where I wanted to go. So how lucky could that be? I had some contacts at Mass General, if you could be lucky with ALS, and I was able to reach out to them, and I got an appointment very quickly. In fact, the next week at the clinic in Mass General. So we went into Mass General, spent a couple hours with the physician. Again, the most time I've ever spent with a physician. He agreed with the diagnosis. He set me up with the normal people you visit at a clinic visit: physical therapist, research coordinator, MDA rep. And that was kind of funny because not one of them ever mentioned the ALS Association. And I didn't realize it until now, but MGH is an MDA sponsored clinic and not an ALS sponsored clinic. And maybe that's why. But I was really scared, and as I'd never been sick before, and everything I read about ALS was pretty scary. So he ordered more tests, and he started me on Riluzole, and he scheduled me to come back the following week. When I did, he reviewed all the tests, again said, and it was EMG, lumbar tap, and another MRI, some more lab tests. He confirmed it. And said, well, how do you want to proceed? And I asked him about this drug, Radicava. And he said, it only helps a small amount of the people. I said, well, I was willing to take that chance. I had done a little bit of research, and I realized that the odds couldn't be any worse than catching ALS. Catching ALS in the right number. I guess you don't catch ALS. I guess you acquire ALS or develop ALS. So anyway, the odds were 7 in 100 that it would work for me. The odds of developing ALS is 1 to 50,000. So I thought the odds at this point were in my favor. So I got scheduled for a port, worked through insurance approvals, and that's where my work experience really came into help here. As Radicava was very new at that point, it had only been on the market for a few months, and insurance companies were reluctant to approve it. And in fact, they did not approve mine. So I knew the systems and I knew how to work my way, and I was able to get it covered. And we got started with Radicava. Now, one of the things about Radicava is you can get that done at home. It is a simple infusion. Takes about a little over an hour for the treatment. But I chose not to have it done at home. I chose to do it at the clinic, or at the infusion clinic here in Brewer, for a couple reasons. First, I was able to schedule at a time that was convenient for me. I get it done every morning when I'm on drug at 8 o'clock in the morning. But I made a decision to not involve and disrupt my wife's daily routine at that point. I thought it was really important that she maintain life as she could, without the other interruptions that ALS was going to throw her way. So with that, I've been getting really my treatments now for I think it's 18 months now with Radicava. I am a slow progressor. I have made really no significant change in my ALS FRS score since 4 weeks after starting the drug. So, and I'm not promoting the drug by any means. I'm just sharing my experience, and I'll talk about that probably some more if we have time. So at that point, I really buckled in, and because I knew nothing of ALS. I really didn't. I knew that Lou Gehrig had the disease. I knew about the Ice Bucket Challenge, and to be honest, I heard a little bit about it on the Jerry Lewis Telethon. But for all practical purposes, I thought it was getting close to being resolved. So I really spent the next amount of time focused on what ALS is all about. Participating in clinical studies. I was denied every clinical trial. ALS actually became my life. Now, that's not all I do. I still do all my chores around the farm. I still do everything I can to pull my weight around here, as it will. So anyway, during this time, I did everything I could to research ALS and figure out what my role in this was going to be. So I decided that to make ALS my full-time job, I was going to go out and raise money. I was going to advocate for patients and improve therapies. I was going to help the ALS community any way I could, anywhere anybody needed help. And as Lori said, my involvement started with my team development for the Bangor Walk. In fact, that was my first contact I had with anybody. I had developed a significant amount of money, or raised a significant amount of money, when I got a call from the walk coordinator, and then immediately from Lori, because I was not on their radar at all. Coming from an MDA clinic, apparently the communication was not great. And so I sort of fell through the cracks, but I'm glad I did. I spent a significant amount of time now doing everything I can with the ALS Association, as well as several other associations I work with. But I participate in ALS advocacy, partially because we have such great representatives here in Maine that are open to talking to. We're a small state, and so they do have a tendency to want to talk to their constituents, much more so than from Texas, where I was from. So with that, I started to grow my ALS network as big and as fast as I could, and that's really where I am today. I have numerous committees I participate on, both with the ALS Association and other ALS organizations. I'm now more comfortable with my disease. That doesn't mean I have bad days. I do, like we all, but I feel better. I feel stronger. Really with all aspects of my life at this point. And most of that comes from the interaction I have with the ALS people. The ALS group meetings have really been tremendous for me. Not only have I expanded my community, they're just great people. And we all share a common bond, and we learn so much from each other. I really look forward to our monthly meetings. And as Lori will tell you, I've made great friendships, and I talk to many of them during the month when we're not meeting, just to see how they're doing or what's going on in their life. And it's really been important to me. So with that, I guess I'll probably stop at this point. And Lori, I think I'm out of time. So.
I think you are, but I think that your message is loud and clear. David really is somebody who wants to connect with anyone within our community. So whether you're living with ALS or you have a loved one, or you're not even sure what your role is in our community, reach out to anyone in care services. We'll get you connected with David. Part of his kind of drive, his reason for getting up in the morning is to make sure we're all helping each other. So David, thanks for your time today. And I would imagine you're going to hear from more of us after today.
No, great. I look forward to it. And Lori, thanks for all you do. And thanks for all the association and chapter does for all of us with ALS.